Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa arrived in Agadir on Boxing Day thinking they were walking into a football match, only to discover they had accidentally booked a front row seat to the VAR theatre of the absurd, starring Egypt national football team and directed by a referee whose whistle apparently responds better to replays than to reality. 90 minutes later, Bafana Bafana were walking off with a 1-0 defeat. Egypt were already packing their bags for the knockout stages, and South African football Twitter was conducting forensic analysis of a single penalty frame like it was the Zapruder film. The game itself didn't start badly. In fact, South Africa looked confident, organized, and brave enough to believe that history might be optional on this particular afternoon. They pressed, they countered, they moved the ball with purpose, and for a while, Egypt looked uncomfortable. Then, just before halftime, because football loves drama with timing, VAR entered the chat. A foul in the box was spotted, zoomed, slowed, debated, and eventually converted into a penalty. Mohamed Salah stepped up, did not blink, sent the goalkeeper the wrong way, and suddenly South Africa were trailing at halftime, wondering how a match they were competing in had quietly turned into a tutorial on tournament ruthlessness. And then came the twist. Egypt were reduced to 10 men early in the second half after a reckless challenge and a second yellow card. At that moment, South Africa were handed the golden ticket. Extra space, extra time, extra belief. And to their credit, they took control. Possession tilted heavily in their favor. Egypt retreated into a defensive bunker and Bafana Bafana began circling like a team convinced the equalizer was inevitable. Mbokazi came on and injected agency, nearly leveling things with a header that forced a sharp save. Foster and Apollis tried their luck. Shots flew, crosses came in, bodies piled up in the Egyptian box, but nothing crossed the line. Egypt, masters of the dark arts, blocked, delayed, disrupted, and wasted time with the calm confidence of a team that knows AFCON is not about beauty, it's about survival. When the final whistle blew, Egypt had qualified for the knockout stages and South Africa were left with one of football's most painful souvenirs: dominance with nothing to show for it. Coach Hugo Broos didn't sugarcoat it. The penalty decision, he said, was ridiculous, which in football language translates to, "I'll be thinking about this until at least 2027.
First of all, I want to talk about the meeting you get before a tournament. 45 minutes, they explain your rules. 25 rules, 50 rules. Then it's penalty, then it's not penalty, then it's a red card because you hit a player, then it's not a red card, then it's whatever. And at the end, there are so many rules that nobody knows anymore what to do. Take the first penalty. Even Mo Salah said to me after the game, I was surprised that that was a penalty. It was ridiculous, really ridiculous. And then we take our penalty. In the meeting, they said, when the arm is extended of the body, it's penalty. The arm was extended of the body, so it was penalty. And then they say me nonsense saying it was a supporting arm. Well, who invents a supporting arm? The arm was extended and the ball hit his arm. It's a real penalty. For the rest, I think the first half Egypt was a better team. They had some chances. They had a better circulation of the ball. Through the second half, okay, there were one man less, but we dominated them for the 45 minutes, and in that moment you need a little bit luck that the ball falls good or that the shot is good. We didn't have that luck. And okay, we lost the game today, but there is still a game. And what happens here today on the pitch? Certainly the decisions made motivate us for 200% to win the game on Monday against Zambia.
But beneath the frustration lies a more uncomfortable truth. South Africa had enough time, enough possession, and enough chances to change the story, and they didn't. VAR didn't help, but it also wasn't the only villain in the room. Now, here's where the plot thickens, because despite all the noise, the memes, and the outrage, South Africa are not in trouble. Not yet. After 2 matches, Bafana Bafana sits on 3 points, and the qualification picture is still very much in their hands. A win in their final group match sends them to 6 points and guarantees qualification without needing a calculator, a prayer, or a Twitter thread explaining permutations. A draw takes them to 4 points, which almost certainly sees them qualifying directly as one of the top 2 in the group. And even in the unlikely scenario they slip to 3rd, 4 points would make them one of the most comfortable best 3rd placed teams in the tournament. Even a loss, yes, even that, likely keeps South Africa alive as a best 3rd, provided they don't collapse spectacularly and sabotage their goal difference. In other words, the situation is only dramatic if South Africa chooses to make it dramatic. And unfortunately for everyone's blood pressure, the final group game is against the Zimbabwe national football team. And this is where AFCON mathematics collide head-on with Southern African rivalry. This is not just a football match. This is historic. Proximity, pride, and unresolved neighbourly tension wearing football boots. On the pitch, it's a derby loaded with emotion. Off the pitch, it's a social media civil war waiting to happen. Twitter spaces will be opened before kickoff, during halftime, and long after the final whistle, with everyone suddenly becoming a tactical expert, a referee analyst, and a geopolitical commentator all at once. And in the mix will be immigration and xenophobia tones. Zimbabwe come into this game knowing exactly what they represent. Disruption. A win flips the narratives. A win rewrites group standings. A win turns South Africa's calm qualification math into panic algebra. South Africa, on the other hand, know that 1 point ends the conversation, locks the door, and spares them the humiliation of needing favors from other groups. But rivalry has a habit of ignoring logic. Zimbabwe will not play like a team reading the table. They will play like a team trying to make a statement. South Africa will not just be playing for qualification. They will be playing to avoid becoming a punchline. So expect tension. Expect tackles that arrive with messages attached. Expect refereeing decisions to be litigated in real time online. Expect every missed chance to feel heavier than the last, because this is AFCON. This is neighbors. And this is the kind of game where football doesn't just happen on grass. It happens in timelines, voice notes, and endless debates about who really runs Southern African football. Forget Zambia. Forget Angola. The real fight is between South Africa and Zimbabwe. South Africa still control their destiny. Zimbabwe still control the chaos. And when the final whistle blows, one team will be celebrating qualification, while the other will be trending. And whichever way it goes, Mzansi Roast News will be right there, translating the football and roasting the fallout.